The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths, in particular Sally Hardesty and her invalid brother Franklin. It is all the more tragic in that they were young, but have they lived very, very long lives. They could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and the macabre as they were to see that day. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon drive became a nightmare. The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history. Today, I am reviewing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, on my Instagram, PowerChicken367, go and follow me on Instagram, I posted on my story that I would be doing 2 reviews today. Now, the second one I'm not going to spoil, but this review is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre by Toby Hooper. But I'm not just going to do that. I'm going to be reviewing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake, and the Texas Chainsaw 2023 movie. So with all that, let's start it with the original 1974 masterpiece, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So this film is very special to me because I'm not a person who gets scared by horror films easily. The only horror films that tend to scare me are sort of paranormal activity things because I sort of know it's real and that's why it scares me. But my DVD player was broken on my Xbox, so I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on my headphones, with my headphones, on my laptop at full volume in the dark. And it was up close. And it was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. It was extremely scary. I knew it was going to be gory, and it's not actually. It's not very gory, as this pops up. But honestly, it's not very gory and not very brutal. But I did not expect it to be as tame as it was. But regardless, it still scared me. Like, there were a lot of jump scary bits, like the bit in the forest, which you'll probably see in a bit. Because it was just so scary, man. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. It was the only horror film that would manage to scare me. So that's why it's so, special to me. That's why I think so much of it. So, the real point of this review, the reason I wanted to do this film, is because it would go on to be my second favourite film of all time, just behind The Shining. Anyone who knows me would know that's my favourite film. But, I don't know what it is, but this film is just amazing. I think it's because it's a classic. And, technically it revived the horror genre, because people say Psycho's the granddaddy of all horror films, which it is. But people say the film that revived it is Halloween in 1978. But it's not. It's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974. This film was so influential for its time, and it would go on to get banned in so many countries. Over here in the UK, where I'm filming this, it was banned for 24 years, and it wouldn't come out until 1998. So you can see why it's as well known, as popular as it is. It's just an amazing film. I mean, I've got so much memorabilia. I've got loads of the films on DVD. I've got the book. I've got a Leatherface Lego figure, not official. I've got the chainsaw from the film, a prop replica. I've got so much associated with it. And I was going to go as Leatherface for this year's Comic-Con in my county. That's before I saw Terrifier, and now I'm going as Art the Clown. But that's a film for another day. Now, in terms of what I have to say about the film, there's not a lot, to be honest. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know the story of the film, the story is about a group of five friends who go on a vacation to Texas to visit an old summer house where one of their dads owns it. And the 2 main characters are Sally Hardesty and her sister Franklin. Now, Franklin is in a wheelchair and he's disabled. And as they head to this place, they seem to pick up a strange hitchhiker who freaks them out and they chuck him out the van. Now, when they go to when they get to the house that the dad owns, they get there and it's really run down. 2 of them go for a walk somewhere. They encounter Leatherface, and carnage happens. And then if you haven't seen the film, I won't spoil what happens in the third act, because it's a great twist. But that's basically the plot of the film. Now, this is probably one of the most influential films of all time, and one of the most celebrated films of all time. I mean, it gave birth to so many tropes in horror films. There was the final girl trope, there's the signature weapon trope, there's the blood and carnage trope, there's the disabled character trope, there's the annoying character trope, and there's the family trope. I mean, there's so much going on here. I mean, you've got to love it, surely. Now, I think that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a very amazing film. I think it's beautifully made. But if you go into it, hearing the information that was banned, thinking, fucking hell, this is going to be brutal, then you're probably going to be wrong, as it's... I mean, it was 1974, so for this day and age, it's very tame, and it's not that scary, to be honest. So if you're going into this expecting loads of gore, loads of blood, loads of carnage, that is not what this is going to be. So for anyone who's unfamiliar with Leatherface, he is pretty much a killer who makes masks out of human skin. Now that is just fucked up, as you would think. So, for my review of the film is, it's very beautifully made. It's a beautifully made film, and it's shot, because it's very old, it's shot almost like a documentary, which makes it seem much more real. So I think that elevates it a bit. I mean, it elevates it a lot. That makes it amazing. And it was the 70s, so a lot of the stuff you see in the film is real. When Sally jumps out the window, that's real. When the cast are getting just sliced up with a chainsaw, where they put the chainsaw right up to their faces, they didn't actually cut them, but that was a real chainsaw. When Leatherface was running with the chainsaw, that was real. But when he cut Sally's finger with the knife, that's Sally there, when he cut Sally's finger with the knife, it was real. So pretty much all of the stunts here were real, and everyone on the set got hurt at one point. The director, Tobe Hooper, went on to make many classic films, including Poltergeist, which is... he's directed Poltergeist, and he also went on to co-direct... Sorry, no, I can't speak today. He also went on to co-direct, I believe it was The Hills Have Eyes, though I'm not too sure. But he's had an amazing career, and a lot of actors from this have actually disappeared, which is a shame. Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface is obviously amazing. Jim Seedow as the cook, my personal favourite character in the movie, I'll get to him in a bit. But all of the cast pretty much haven't acted in anything else, which is a shame, because I think they'll do an excellent job in capturing the spirit of the film. Now, here's my review of Jim Seedow in the film. So Jim Seedow plays the cook in the film, and I think he does an absolutely amazing job of coming off as creepy and funny at the same time. So, for those of you who don't know, the Texas Chainsaw 2 is... It's definitely a lot more of a comedy. Sorry if I'm taking long breaks during talking, I've just got sort of the hiccups. But, yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is much more of like a dark comedy film. But, if you watch this film, Tobe Hooper explained in an interview that there was dark comedy in this film, it's just overshrouded by the such serious subject matter in this film. And you can definitely see that. Especially with Jim Seedow and the Hitchhiker. Particularly, I think some of the funniest moments are when the cook calls the Hitchhiker a bitch hog. And particularly when they go in the house, look what your brother did to the door. I think those are really the comedic elements of the film. And you can definitely see that. You can see what Tobe Hooper was talking about when he did the interview. So I think that Jim Seedow in the film does an excellent job. Now, he wouldn't go on to act in any much else. He did a couple of low, budget old films. But apart from this and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, he's not really amazingly well known. Which I think is a shame, because I think he's a brilliant actor. Sadly, he passed away in, I believe, 2013, I think it was. Yeah, sadly, he passed away in 2013. and that was very unfortunate. We all miss him. I miss him so much. But his acting in this film is just amazing. I mean, he manages to pull off so much. He manages to come off as so much in this film. Oh, he died in 2003. Oh, wow. Yeah. So he dies in 2003. So he was 83 when he died because he was born in 1920. Wow. Okay. So he was Sorry. I'm just sorry. So yeah, his role in this film was the cook, who is... I won't spoil who it is. This is the hitchhiker as well, played by Ed Neal. So yeah, I won't reveal who the cook is because it's a great twist in the film. But if you watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, then you can definitely see his performance shine above everyone else. I think he's got the most personality of everyone else, maybe apart from Leatherface, because he's like the villain. But I think he's got the most personality. He comes across as funny. He's stern. He's strict, and it's just an amazingly funny performance from him. And I think he pulls off creepy so well. Now he's not a fan of killing. He doesn't like to kill. He just makes the meat, which is fair. At his barbecue place in the gas station, he serves cooked human, which is very nice. So. Lovely. That's lovely that he has that, isn't it? So I think that Jim Seadow would go on to reprise his role for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 in 1986. But other than that, he hasn't really done much else, like cinema-wise. Sorry, there's a spider on my desk. See, he hasn't done much else film-wise, which is a shame because I think he's a very good actor. Now, in terms of other cast members in the film, Marilyn Burns is amazing as Sally. She sadly wouldn't go on to reprise her role in other films, including the 2023 film, because she died. I'm not sure when. But, yeah, the other cast members are amazing. And another standouts are Ed Neal and Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface. I think he's the best Leatherface. I don't think anyone else is going to top him. He's the original Leatherface, the best Leatherface. Now, I don't really know how to review this film, honestly, because there's so much I could say about it, but I don't know how to say it, if that makes sense. And I've sort of summed it up all already. So, I'm not sure what to do to review this. I'm really not sure. I think... the word I would use to describe this film is brutal. There's some really brutal kills in this. I won't spoil anything. But, it's called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, what do you expect? Yeah, I think everything in this film is just great. I think the ending is amazing. Here, you can see some of the gore here, actually. So, this is a video of the full film on YouTube. I've muted it, so I'm not likely to get any copyright issues. So you're not going to be able to hear it. But this is the film. So yeah, where was I at? Yeah, so in terms of the film, the ending is great. The narration at the beginning is amazing, and I think the one letdown in the film for me personally is that it's not very long. It's only an hour and a half, which is like standard film time. But I just wish it was a little bit longer because I think there's so much more to explore here. Now, like I said, it would get banned in several countries, so I can understand why it's not very long. It was very controversial for the time. But I do just wish it was longer. Just maybe like 10-15 minutes longer. It should be a nice thing to have, you know. Now, I think that a lot of the performances in this are not the best performances, though. I think they all do an excellent job, but especially the kids, apart from maybe Marilyn Burns as Sally, just never stuck out to me. Franklin is one of the most annoying horror characters ever. I was so happy when he died. Sorry, that was a spoiler. Didn't mean to spoil that. But yeah, I was very happy when Franklin died, because he was just a bitch, mate. He was so annoying. And his wheelchair would go on to be seen in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which brings me on to the next review. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, released in 1986, is technically the sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it doesn't really explore the plot anymore. The plot revolves around a station, a person who works in a radio station. I can't remember her name. Teaming up with a sheriff to hunt down Leatherface and his family as they are back. Now, instead of... So, the hitchhiker is not in this film. Instead of that, we have the hitchhiker's twin brother, who was fighting in Vietnam in the events of the first film, called Chop Top, who is in the film instead of the hitchhiker. I won't say why he's in the film, but you'll see. You'll see when you watch it. You'll see when you watch the original. So, the second film, I think, is interesting. So, the only actor to reprise a role for the second film is Jim Seedale as the cook, which I was very pleased about, because he's the best actor in the first film. But I don't love it. I think it's made very well, and it's a worthy sequel. But I just wish it would lean more into the horror aspect. It's definitely a lot more gorier, and definitely probably a little bit maybe scarier than the first film in terms of gore wise. But I just wish it dove into the horror more. It's definitely more focused on dark comedy, and I don't really enjoy that as much as I would, particularly with the character Chop Top. He's definitely the comedy character in this. But I with some horror films I do enjoy comedy. There's comedy in Terrifier, the original It miniseries. Shaun of the Dead is a comedy horror. Hot Fuzz has its gory moments, so sort of a comedy horror. Scream as well, The Leprechaun. But I think that Gremlins as well, and The Nightmare on Elm Street, obviously. Anyway, well, for London, I could go on forever. There's loads of comedy horrors that I like. Zombieland, for one. But I think in here it just doesn't work too well, because the original... None of these films that I've just mentioned, none of their predecessors or sequels or anything, are serious films. I mean, they are serious, but they all have comedy. Both Terrifier films have comedy in them. But Shaun of the Dead doesn't have any sequels. All the Scream films have comedy in them. All the It films have comedy in them. All the Nightmare on Elm Streets have comedy in them. American Werewolf in Paris has comedy in it. Gremlins 2 is much more comedy in than the first film. And Zombieland 2 has comedy in it. So I think that because of the first film's dark subject matter, the comedy in the second film just doesn't match up too well. That's the main issue I have with it. And although it's a great film, like I said, I think it's beautifully well made, it's just not for me. If I want to watch a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, I'm in the mood to check out Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Because I'm not. I would much rather be in the mood to watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Heck, maybe even the 2003 remake. Nah, I wouldn't watch that over this, actually. I despise that film. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, this film is just doesn't work well, to be honest. I mean, it's fine, and it's a good film, but the comedy clashes too much, I think, with the gore in this case, and the tone of the original film. I think if it was some more subtle comedy like the first film, then I think it would work much more well. But the fact that it's more of a pure comedy doesn't really help, and makes it kind of mediocre and come across as sort of a cheap, crappy sequel. Now, Dennis Hopper's in the sequel, which definitely helps. He's an amazing actor, and he is amazing in this. But I just think that it definitely could have been more horror-esque, definitely more horror than comedy, and that would have made it much more better, in my opinion. Now, in terms of the actual plot of the film, it's, like I said, a radio station person, lady who works at a radio station, trying to hunt down Leatherface and his family, with policeman played by Dennis Hopper. Now, I think it's a good plot, and it works well. It's just, I think, I don't like how there's more of a story to it this time. I feel like I would have liked more of a backstory of Leatherface than the family. There's Jim Seedale, my man. How you doing, buddy? But But I think I would have preferred it if there was like more of a backstory of Leatherface than like a story. Like the first film that has a story, like it's about kids turning up and they get butchered. But that's a very simple plot, and I respect it for that. But the sequel has a full-on plot, and I don't overly like that. I think it would have been better if they just kept it to the same sort of roots, kept it to the same sort of slasher vibe that the first film went for. And then it sort of reminds me of like sort of like the future Friday the 13th films. Like, although I think those films are amazing, and I will do a probably a marathon video on those one day, I do think that those films explore like Jason's backstory way too much and focus on that like a story a bit too much. But then I think it doesn't work as well with this film. I would like to know less about Leatherface and just have him as a brutal killer. Kind of like Pinhead. We don't know too much about Pinhead. We know that he was a human and he got turned into a Cenobite. But we don't know too much about him. And I really like that. Like the Mogwais from Gremlins as well. Or Freddy Krueger. We don't know too much about Freddy Krueger, and he was a child killer who got killed. The Gremlins just came to this planet. We pretty much don't know anything about the Gremlins. But it's just, I don't really want to know too much about Leatherface. That's the thing. And I am happy this film does that. It does a perfect job of not knowing too much about Leatherface. But then the story, I just don't like it. I just don't like the story either. The story to me feels a bit too like, I don't know how to put it. It just feels a bit lazy. Like the hunting down a killer plot has been done to death. I guess it was 1986, so it hadn't been done too much, but it's still been done quite a lot. The hunting down a killer plot, they've done it in a Friday the 13th movie, I think, at this point. Did they do it in a Friday the 13th? Yeah, they did. Hunting down a killer, they sorted it in the end of The Shining, where Halloran hunts down Jack. They did it in Halloween, where Dr. Loomis was hunting after Michael Myers. So they've done it a lot. And I think that it just gets a little bit old after a while. Now, I don't really have too much to say, as well, I'm quite tired. But I don't really have much to say about these films, because they're all sort of the same, all sort of similar. I'll have probably the most to say about the 2023 remake, because I only just watched that 2 days ago. So that'll be much more recent. So I think my reviews of the two original films are the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a masterpiece, and I would never trade it away for anything in the world, apart from maybe another Shining film. We'll see about that. And the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is a good film. It's a good film, but it's just not for me. Now we move on to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake. When I hear of this film, when anyone says this film to me, I immediately think, yeah, I just want to throw up. The 2003 remake is just awful. It relies... I didn't even finish it. I watched about half hour and turned it off. So I can't give a full review. But I've watched reviews of it because I don't care about spoilers for this god-awful film. But the thing is it relies way too much on gore, which the original didn't rely on. It relies on way too much gore candy. And they changed the names of the main characters. They changed the story a little bit as well. I just didn't like it. The grandpa looks way less creepy. Fucking Leatherface looks just awful. Jim Seedow was the cook. They didn't go for the same ending plot as the last one this time, which I do respect, but I won't give away any spoilers. But it's just not interesting whatsoever. The acting is dull. The setting, I will say for this, they got the original cinematographer from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre to do this film, and that's the one thing it does well. The cinematography in this film is amazing, but that's really the only good thing about it, I would say. That and the scene I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there's a scene involving someone's face on Leatherface, where the main girl sees a friend's face on Leatherface, and that's all I'll say. That is a very good scene, actually. But I don't think that it's a really good film, to be honest. It's just boring and not interesting whatsoever. The plot is dull, the gore is dull, the characters are dull. I wish they'd actually stuck with the plot from the original, because that would have, all that's been done before, would have been a much more redeeming quality. And it's also like the way over the top look of films nowadays. I just don't like that. I think I prefer in the 80s when films looked much more real. Like this, they looked much more real. I don't like all the lighting and effects in films nowadays. Like, I think after the 90s, that's when it started to happen, and I just don't like that. I don't think it works well. And there's a lot of that in the remake. The remake is just shit. That's the one way I would describe it, in shit. Leatherface is awful, the plot is awful, the characters are dull, the story is boring, and there is just nothing to enjoy apart from that one scene and the cinematography. Kind of reminds me of Shrek 3. Now, if there was one other positive I could say about this film, is I kind of trashed on the look of Leatherface earlier, but it's not the worst. It's not the worst looking Leatherface we've had. 2023 film, sorry. I'll get to that later. But I just don't like it overall. I think it's fine, but it's not amazing. I think his chainsaw is far too long, though. I get chainsaws are long nowadays, but I think the sort of shorter and stubbier chainsaw from the original just works so much better than the long chainsaw scene in this film. I just don't like that. Now, I don't have much to say about these films, like I've said, so I know we're only 27 minutes in, but now I want to go to the new 2023 film, because I have so much to say about it. So I watched the 2023 film 2 nights ago, at like 4 AM in the morning. What a drag. It's not the worst film. If I wanted to watch a good horror film on Netflix, and it's like a decent horror film on Netflix, I suppose, I would stick it on in the background, but I wouldn't necessarily pay attention. So if I saw it on my DVDs in my room or something, that's something I'd put on in the background. But like, if I wanted to watch it, then I wouldn't. It's just a boring watch. There's nothing to like about it. They make Leatherface a ruthless killer. There's a gore candy in this, which doesn't work well for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The plot is that I think they're a family or business people, I'm not sure, but they're buying a abandoned town, and there's this lady who lives in a building who's Leatherface's mother, and they kick her out because they think she didn't own the place, but they did, and that makes Leatherface turn on when she dies, that makes Leatherface turn on everyone. She go on a rampage. I don't like the switch to gore and the switch to making Leatherface a killer for the sake of it. In the original, I won't give away any spoilers, like I said, but he's sort of tricked into it in a way. But in this, he just kills for the sake of killing, and I don't like that. I think they should have. I think they should have stuck with this, with sort of being tricked into it, or like a little bit of sympathy for him. But we don't feel sympathy for him because he's killing these people so brutally. Now, there's a lot of there are a few good reviews about this film. There are good reviews saying, "Wow, this film's amazing," but I don't get it. Leatherface wears his mum's face, which just looks awful. He looks like Sloth from the Goonies. One half of his face is down, the other's like sort of up. Like those people with that face disorder, I can't remember what it's called, but when it's like when one half of your face is up and the other sort of droops down, which doesn't work well. It just really boring. His look is dull. The film is dull. The lighting, like I've said, is dull. The gore is dull. Characters are awful. There's one redeeming feature I kind of like about it, is I thought it was kind of funny. Leatherface stepped on the bus and they all just start like Instagramming live or recording or whatever they're doing. I just kind of found that pretty funny. I thought that was pretty humorous. But apart from that, there's just nothing I like about it. It's just dull, boring, and not interesting whatsoever. Now, I watched it expecting it to be actually not too bad. But boy was I wrong. It was awful. It was the biggest pile of shit I have ever seen. Absolutely bullshit. I would much rather like... I think I would much rather like watch... Probably like Jason Takes Manhattan over this, because Jason Takes Manhattan is pretty bad. But you still have a good time with it. There's that boxing kill in that film. Like, that's good. There's just no... that I will actually say in this film, in the Texas Chainsaw film, there was a pretty badass kill where she was going up the stairs and he threw a mini axe at her. Like a hammer or a mini axe at her, and she flew back and dropped into the floor. Like, but bashed through it. But, like, apart from that, it was just pretty boring, to be honest. Now, I know this is a short review for 4 films. I just don't really have a lot to say about these films. Let me give a short review for all the films now. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre film is a masterpiece. It is an amazing film, and I absolutely love it to get death. There's so much going on in it. There's so much beautiful lighting. I love the no gore in it. I love the character of Leatherface, Jim Seedow. It's an amazing film. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is okay. It's an okay film, and I wouldn't mind watching it every now and then. It's just not my favourite in this franchise. The 2003 remake is pretty boring, pretty uninteresting. Not the worst film in the franchise, but just very boring, and I wouldn't volunteer to watch it. And then the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2023 film is awful. If you're a Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan, then it's worth a watch, but it's an awful film. Leatherface looks awful, the cast is awful, the story's awful, and it's just an awful film in general. I would highly unrecommend it. Now, that is my review done for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4 probably most important films. Hope you all enjoyed. Please consider liking and subscribing, and go and follow my Instagram at PowerChicken367. I will see you in the next review, and just remember, here's Johnny.